Welcome everybody to Papa Spice's Hot Takes featuring Hans and Harry. How is everybody out there in internet land doing? Hans, how you doing tonight, buddy?
Doing good. Depending on when you're listening to this, you're halfway through the week or beginning the week. If it's Monday, I'm sorry. If it's Friday, then yay, you made it. So just keep your head up. Keep your head up if you're like kind of in that middle of the week, like we are right now.
Yeah.
You know,
we're on hump day as we record this, but a little bit of motivation, keep you going. That weekend's coming up. Harry, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, Papa. Thanks for asking. As the audience can see, I got a new setup. My job is having me work from home, so I had to have a little office setup. So that allowed for a podcast setup. So things are going well on that end so far. So, but other than that, I'm doing pretty good. As Chris said, middle of the week, we're almost there. So thank God it's Thursday tomorrow.
Nice. Yes. TGIT, right? Almost at the weekend. All right. So the title of this episode, Never Have I Ever Seen, because what we're doing here is we're picking one of us, one of the trio. And in this case, Harry volunteered to be the one. And Hans and I each selected a movie for him that he has not seen before. So we're going to go through and review those. And then, as we progress with our pod, we'll eventually get around to doing this for myself and Hans, and then, start the cycle over again. But we figured this is a good way to get our movie knowledge expanded and get some new takes. Yes, exactly. Get some new takes on old favorites. So with that being said, the two titles that we chose for Mr. Harry here, I chose one of my all-time favorite movies, What Dreams May Come, starring Robin Williams. And Hans, what did you pick for Harry?
Something in a similar category, which in drama, the 2012 movie Dread with Carl Urban.
Yes.
So it's taken me 9 years to get Harry to watch this after I probably talked his ear off all of 2012 about this.
Yeah, that sounds about right, probably.
I'll be honest, this was only my second viewing, so I was happy that you chose that because I got to revisit it. But we're not here for me, we're here for Harry. So Harry, why don't you get us kicked off? What title you want to start with, buddy?
Yeah, so I figure let's start depressing and then get to violent. Okay. I feel like that's a great note to go on. I feel like I don't want to go out on a depressing note. Let's start with a depressing note. So sure. So What Dreams May Come. So this came out in 1998, so pretty much 23 years ago, which, I feel like we're getting to that point. While I was watching this, I was thinking in my head, we're getting to that point where like The Matrix, Saving Private Ryan, some other films are going to be coming up on like their 25th anniversary soon. And it's like, those are the movies like I remember like just not defining me, but like being like, yo, like these are big movies that you have to see. So kind of scary when I was thinking about that.
That is wild.
Yeah, so it's available on Netflix. So for any of you who want to listen to this episode and haven't watched it yet, you can subscribe. If you're a Netflix subscriber, you got it on there. It's a drama, a little bit of romance, tearjerker, as they say. It's based off of a book, which I did not read before doing this. So apologies to the writer. Can't remember his name right now. Sorry, I didn't read your book before the movie. Starring Robin Williams. Who's Robert Williams? Cuba Gooding Jr. I hope I'm pronouncing this right. Annabella Soroka.
I think it's Sciorra or Shora, one or the other.
Okay, yeah, okay. Max von Sydow, who comes in late in the movie and just listen. When Max von Sydow shows up, you're going on an adventure where like there's something that's got to happen. Directed by Vincent Ward. If that name did you
IMDb him?
I did. Yeah, he did.
Okay,
he was like, he was more of a writer. It seemed like he didn't have too many directing credits. And after watching this, I can see why, which I'll mention in a little bit. Listen, I'm not gonna listen. Greg said one of his all-time favorites. I'm not gonna say the movie's bad because it isn't. It has some really good touching moments and stuff like that. But the directing and the amount that I'm going to get into it now, the amount that this movie slows down before it like changes a scene or just slows down for absolutely no reason is unbelievable to me. It could have shaved 15, 20 minutes off of the movie.
Yeah, okay, but I'm going to challenge you here. You're
Oh,
right,
God.
but no, I mean, well, the movie is just absolutely gorgeous. It's like being in a painting, and I feel like
Yeah.
you want to take the time to enjoy that scenery, not just, hey, let's
But
rush and forget all these
listen,
visual
there's
effects.
like there'll be a conversation that's happening between Cuba Gooding Jr. and Robin Williams, and they'll talk about it, and the scene will end, and it'll just turn, and they're slowing down and just moving, and then it'll cut to like a next scene. Really odd choice. As far as you're talking about the beautiful scenery, it obviously, I think you had mentioned to me that it did win for visual effects, I think, right? Won
Yes.
the Oscar.
Won an Oscar. Yeah.
So yeah, won an Oscar for best visual effects there for it. So yeah. Yeah, and Vincent Ward, if you haven't heard of the director, it's because he hasn't really made anything like too prevalent since then. Mainly a 90s guy. And the best way I could describe this movie is it's totally a 90s movie, heavy 90s movie. I could sense, I didn't watch any trailers for either one of these movies. However, with Dread, I probably saw the trailer in 2011. So, oops on me. But this movie I could see just being that, voiceover, when a man loses his children, when a wife can't, I like just see the voice of the movie trailer for it, just like in my head, showing the visuals, showing some of the best lines. Yeah. So yeah, that's if you're feeling like I'm a little torn on the movie as far as like, did I like it or did I not? Like, I really kind of am. But I would lean more towards I liked it. But yeah, sorry, Chris, you were gonna say something.
No, it's just funny because I haven't seen the trailer in over 20 years probably for it, and
avoided
or however, and yeah, you're probably right. It probably is something that I feel like that fits into that like
Robin
90s,
Williams,
like yeah,
Cuba
like
Gooding Jr.
Cuba Gooding Jr. What dreams may come, like yeah, that old formula, and even like I overall like I watched most of it the second time. Like I've seen it a few times. First time I saw it wasn't in theaters. I bought it at like Throwback The Wall, I think.
Nice.
Shout out.
Remember that? Yeah, shout out
That
to
is an old
stores that don't exist. So and I remember like buying I think at like a bin for like $5 or something, and I was like, all right, I'll give it a shot. It's probably one of the most depressing movies I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah.
I think now, like as I watched it, as like when I watched it before, I was like 13 or 14, and you watch it like now, like I'm 36 and a parent, and like you see somebody like some of the struggles that he goes through, and it's just like very like when I watched it just recently for this, I'm like, this is like I don't remember it hitting so hard, but I think like now as you're like an adult and necessarily like could be like. I'm not like don't want to say could be in that position, but like you have different priorities in life than when you're 13 or 14. It really like is. I feel like it's tougher to watch now because I think the last time I watched it maybe was I would say within the past 10 years. But it really does like it hit me a lot harder now because of other priority shift as you get older, and I'm like kind of watching like like a couple times a tear kind of came down. I'm like Jesus, like I do not remember this happening like 20 years ago. But again, God.
Oh, well, I was just gonna say, I mean, it's like you said, as you age and go through life and stuff, your priorities shift, but also you have more experiences. So like this movie, while it's always been a favorite of mine, it hits more so now because yes, I'm a parent. Also, I've dealt with grief through the loss of, someone close to me. And it just it's even more relatable than just being a good piece of cinema. It's like, oh wow, I can empathize and sympathize with what these characters are going through. So it hits on this whole other different level.
Yeah, I mean that was interesting for me when watching it. I was thinking about, because both of you had mentioned watching it, and I'd imagine that you guys have probably watched it when you were younger. And I was like, I wonder, when they do the rewatch before we do our pod, like how are they going to feel as parents about it? I'm obviously not a parent yet, but what we're kind of alluding to, in case you haven't seen the movie, is I'll read my notes word for word. I mean, it starts out with their love story and how they fell in love, kind of running into each other. And then, flash forward to like their wedding, and then they got 2 kids. And within like 5-10 minutes of the movie, the kids die. It gets dark quick. And then right after that, they do a 4-year time jump. There's another car accident. Robin Williams dies. And somewhere in there too, they flash back to when the kids are young. And I forget which kid they're talking to, but they're talking about putting their dog down. So like I'm over here just losing my mind because within like 20 minutes of the movie, we've gone through all these tragedies that I haven't even had time to process, recover. We're doing time jumps. Like I mentioned, the first scene is like them meeting, then it's a wedding, then it's their kids, then the kids die, then we're doing a 4-year time jump, then there's another car accident. I'm like, poor Anne, this girl Anne, who is is played. But yeah, poor Anne. I mean, what did you guys think about that? Like, were you devastated?
Well, for sure. I mean, one of the notes I had was, beautiful family, beautiful home, beautiful life, absolutely idyllic. And then juxtaposed with what is maybe the most depressing first 15 minutes of any movie in cinema history, because it's just 100%. Boom, 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 like one hit after another. And that first 15 minutes, I mean, things lighten up, I guess, relatively speaking, after that. But yeah, I mean, there's this tragedy after tragedy, and you're like, wait a second, what did I get into here?
I honestly, like, I legit said out loud to myself, like, as I was watching it, I watching the first 10 minutes, and I was like, did Pixar make this? Like, like this, I like, if you put the Up music on this, the beginning 15 minutes, like this, I might have a new project. Like,
I would pay any amount of money for like a Pixar remake of this, though.
Yeah, well, you got it. It's called Up.
Got it. It's called.
But
Up.
if you just see like like do 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 do, and then like Robin Williams flies away on balloons, like I'm gonna work on that. Other than that, it is sad. Like that is a really depressing first 15 minutes because, like you said, it starts on such a high where you see like such a nice family, and then it's just like bam. Like,
really,
this is what you're getting. This is what you're getting into, and then he goes to heaven, and it's like, all right, well, this is how it's gonna go, and it doesn't get any better, like for him.
Yeah,
over time.
Well, it does.
Yeah, it does, but it's just like
I know we're jumping ahead, but yeah,
but it's just like it's so weird, like how they kind of like decided, and it basically does what it's supposed to do. Like this isn't like necessarily like for what 75% of the movie. It's not a feel good movie. Like you're not like, oh man, this is really like making, hyping me up and making me feel better. Like it's overall a depressing movie. And it did its job. Like they kind of threw that curveball and saying like, yep, this is not going to be the way. And I actually forgot like that his kids did die. I thought it was just Robin Williams who died. So I was kind of like a little shocked because I forgot. And spoiler. And
well, I was gonna say, spoiler alert, later in the movie the wife kills herself. So like the movie starts,
and I forgot and I forgot about that too. Like I thought
literally all four of the main characters.
Yeah, like I thought she was like in a coma or something, or like in that like limbo world, like kind of like Inception, but this is Inception.
So I'll talk a little bit about what I really, really enjoyed about the movie. Greg mentioned it earlier about the visual effects. Now, I was doing a little research while we were talking. It did beat out Armageddon for best visual effects. So I don't know. Armageddon maybe should have taken that one, but because I think there's some cool practical effects in this that I
think the effects for this still hold up, whereas if you rewatch Armageddon, it's a little hokey.
I think the first half of this movie, the effects hold up really well. When you get into, their version of hell or whatever it is, I think it kind of looks very green screeny, but that's like 90s effects to me. Like you can take any movie in the 90s and like, that's what I'm saying. Like early in the movie when he jumps into the kind of the painting, when he's trying to communicate with his wife, that must have been the messiest set because Robin Williams is just dripping in paint. And then Cuba Gooding Jr.'s character is just touching paint and everybody's playing with paint. dog comes back. So there's there's a nice moment there. But that was really well done. I really enjoyed the moments where they spent time in that. It felt very kind of Wizard of Ozzy. There's just very, very kind of like you're in a new, different world, and different color palette and all that.
Ethereal, surreal.
Yeah. So really love that. The story, I kind of really enjoyed, the fact of like, thinking about it from a family's perspective and like, how do you go on after if your kids die, and how do the parents kind of cope with that? And both of them cope in different ways. And then how do you cope when your husband dies, as well? And the kind of idea of soulmates, my wife and I have had long conversations about like soulmates. So it was a nice touching moment in the movie when they're kind of, they understand and they've talked for their whole lives that they're meant for each other. And, for me, that's like what a soulmate is. It's like, we're here in this moment together. It's not, we are destined, or defined, but, your soulmate becomes, your person by, growing and, becoming one with them. So I really, really heavily enjoyed that part of the, sorry to get a little emotional in it, but yeah, those were big highlights for me for it.
Well, so what I want to say about that is, yeah, I mean, there is a lot of depressing stuff about the movie, but at its core,
100%.
there's also a really cool or strong message, which is like this love that transcends space and time and all boundaries. And, what are you willing to do to chase after that love? Will you go through hell itself? And like, even if one person is in the afterlife and the other is still, earthbound.
How far will you go?
Exactly. Like, so I don't know. It's just, man, I'm getting like goosebumps talking about it now, but I think, there is beauty in here, not just visual beauty, but also, metaphysical beauty as well.
Yeah.
Man, you guys got deep.
Yeah.
I wanted to go back to the special effects because some of them, like with the shot where they're in hell, it looks like they're on a Zoom screen. Like it looks like the back.
Yeah, listen.
Exactly where I'm like behind Cuba.
But there's like some Mad Max Fury Road type parts of it where they're like in this underworld, and that looks pretty cool. It looks like that's set on a stage somewhere. And then I really dug the boat scene when they're going in and all the bodies are coming out of the water. That was pretty cool. And that looked pretty solid from watching it. But a lot of it.
When they got to shore too, shout out to Werner Herzog for having just a super brief cameo. Random
being on set, he's like, "Hey, you need anybody? Yeah, Werner, can you just start talking, pretending you're his father? That'll be great."
You know what I thought? I think this was the first serious role that I've seen Robin Williams do, like in terms of drama. I don't really, because this was 98, so like I don't know if I necessarily saw Good Will Hunting or a few other of his movies, like
they might have been.
Or he's the teacher, Dead Poet Society. Like I haven't seen those. But like I all I knew him from was like comedy, was like Peter Pan, Hook, and all those like, and I think like I prefer Robin Williams like more as a dramatic actor. Because I'm not like a huge fan of like Mrs. Doubtfire's okay, like all his like goofy like flubber, like they're family movies, but I think like the range that he had when he like in some of his movies to be able to play like a silly character like the professor from Flubber or Mrs. Doubtfire, but then he deals with like a movie like this and it comes out like unfortunately like later when he died that he was suffering from depression. He was suffering from, the mental illness where, you really wonder like when actors throw these performances through, it's kind of like how, like, sometimes I feel like it's not even like it felt like in some parts he has that kind of like that expression on his face where it feels like he's not acting. And I feel like this kind of movie, like, even though there is like a depressing tone to it, like he handles those like dark, and even in other movies that he handles these dark moments like so well. And it's unfortunate that like he did pass a few years ago, but you look at back on some of these roles that he had, like, and another one like Good Will Hunting that he has, it's like he has one-liners like jokes but for the most part, he's a very dramatic actor, and he's Juilliard trained. Like he has such a high range, and I think he doesn't get enough credit for this. Like I know on IMDb, it's like a 7 out of 10, which is a solid score. I remember, I feel like a lot of people that I've talked to about this movie don't like it, and they're like, "Well, it's Robin Williams being serious." I'm like, I could literally name you probably 10 movies right now that he's a phenomenal dramatic actor, and I think this movie, I don't know if it visually it's great. Like I feel like this is like kind of, I can't imagine anyone else in this role other than Robin Williams. I feel like it definitely was like a real iconic role for him, and it really, like I wish we eventually got to see some of that more dramatic stuff now, because I think like towards the end he was still doing some silly stuff, but like during the 90s he was cranking out the dramatic stuff. Like in this is the first movie I think I can like identify him in and be like, oh yeah, that's Robin Williams.
This was the first movie for me that I had seen him in a dramatic role. I mean, I had seen Good Morning Vietnam when I was like really young, but even in that, I mean, it's a serious role, but he's playing, kind of like a wisecracking guy. In this, he's just pretty much straight up. There's not any like goofy mannerisms or shenanigans or anything like that.
Cracks a couple jokes in it, but I wouldn't say it's anything that's like out of sorts for the character.
Right. Yeah.
Nothing silly, just like funny, humor that you would see from a dad.
Right. Yeah. It's like dad jokes or maybe like a little aside or whatever, but not any like crazy impressions or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, I found him and his acting in this very touching, and knowing what we know now, kind of like what Hans said, there are some scenes where it's like, oh man, I wonder how much of that is just him being him, or, but either way, I mean, that's the mark of a good actor is, not knowing where that line is drawn between the character and the person. It's just, there's just the performance. So I don't know. It's pretty cool. How about you, Harry? What'd you think about it? Specifically him.
It's interesting watching it now, with him being gone, and I think what I'll find really enjoyable about the this series that we're gonna do, as we continue to do our podcast, we pick movies for each other, is watching movies where sometimes the actor or actress is now gone, or you're watching their best work, and I think watching Robin in this role was pretty interesting, because I felt like it was just such a change for him. Like I've obviously seen Good Will Hunting, and a couple other of his. I'm trying to think of them right now, but I can't off the top of my head. A couple of his later roles. I know he did that really dark kind of where he played like a photo developer,
24-hour photo.
Yeah, like that kind of creepy role for that, but it's really exciting to kind of, I wouldn't say exciting, but it's really interesting and makes you wonder, like, as he was, filming this, like how much, of these thoughts, or troubles that he might've been dealing with for all his life was he dealing with then. On a lighter note for it, they make him younger in this movie, for the very early on flashbacks when they first meet, and wow, what an attempt there for it.
No prosthetics, mind you.
No, none at all. Just straight up, just Robin Williams with like a wig,
a bad wig.
Yeah, a real bad wig. I was watching it now. There's that moment whenever you watch an older movie and you're like, how old was Robin Williams in this? And then you're starting to think, you're like, no, like he didn't. Dead Poet Society already happened. Like I definitely remember earlier movies, and like wasn't Good Will Hunting like right around then, and he's like playing this bearded old guy, and you're like, wait, what? This is a wig? Like you're kind of just taken aback and blown away. But yeah, that was pretty wild on a lighter note for it.
Funny side story to that. I just watched on Netflix The Movies That Made Us. The new season dropped, and they had an episode of Forrest Gump, and they noted in the movie how Sally Field and Forrest Gump, or Tom Hanks, in whatever movie they had done prior to this, were like husband and wife, were like boyfriend and girlfriend, and then the very next movie they do together, Forrest Gump, she's his mom.
Yeah. Just
So
going
it's
for
funny
it.
that you say that about Robin Williams, where he's like playing a super old dude, and then the very next movie he's like, oh yeah, here's him in his early 20s.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's just a bad wig.
And another like a funny example of that is when you mentioned that, like how like they like not de-age him, but like they give him a wig. Like
Yeah.
I look at like Goodfellas, like and you know how old like Robert De Niro is supposed to be in Goodfellas? He's supposed to be like 27 or 28, I think. And Ray Liotta, I think, is supposed to be like 22 or 23. And so's no, not Danny DeVito, Joe Pesci.
Pesci,
Like
yeah.
they are the oldest looking people
Yeah.
like now. And
There's no
way.
de-aging Pesci.
There's no way. Yeah. Joe Pesci looked like he was 60 for at least the past 20 or 30 years. And the other like instance that made me laugh was like, and you know, you're both fans of The Office, is there's the scene where I don't exactly know where it is, where like Michael shows a picture with his old boss shaking his hand. It's like the meme too.
Oh yeah.
But he has the
that's
long
wig.
like mullet wig where it makes
Oh,
it
yeah.
supposed to make it look like he's like 22, but he still looks like he's like 40.
Yeah. So I had an interesting question when I was watching the movie. So at one point, there's a scene which I believe gets revealed to be like you're kind of piecing it together, where he's talking in heaven to a woman who ends up being his daughter, and it flashes back to a scene, and he talks about playing his daughter in chess, and he played his daughter. I want to get a parent's on this. He played his daughter in chess for 3 months. And she wanted like serious games. She didn't want, you know, Robin Williams to take, you know, or to take it easy. And he beat her for 3 months, and then she died. So like, just interesting. Like, would you have any regrets as a father if like you were playing a game with your kid and you didn't let him win, and then, you know, tragedy strikes? Like, how would you deal with that? Would you be like, dang, I should have let him win at least once?
Hans, you've been a parent longer. I'll let you go first.
This is a tough question because it's like I like, you know, I mean, I probably like just knowing me and like and kind of like my personality and everything, I probably would feel bad, and it probably would like make me feel like crap.
Probably.
But Thins 2, and the only game that we've played on a board is Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood. And I don't know if I won or he won. I don't even know. Neither of us really know what happened.
Right.
So that's my only example I have. But I mean, in any other situation, like, yeah, like I would probably like, I feel like there would be some ounce of guilt where I'm like, man, like, but at the same time, I would know in the back of my head, she like had said, like, go, like, give it all you got. Like you
Yeah.
play like a champ.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm just a horrible person, but I would not feel bad. I wouldn't have that guilt because I know that, look, I was being honest with her
Yeah.
and
Right.
challenging her, and I was following her wishes. I was giving her what she wanted, which is, you know, straight up games of chess, not letting her just, you know, go to town and never improving.
See, what I
Also-
would do is like if she became like if she was like about to do like checkmate. I don't know how to play chess. I have no idea. I play it like checkers. But I would
Wrong.
like if she came like a move away, knowing me, I'd probably swipe all the pieces off and be like, now no one wins.
Yes.
Yeah. So a couple other lighter moments that I noted from the movie. At one point, Anne, the wife, she makes a joke about buying a bike. This family really should have invested in bikes, or you know, subway or train. Car accidents. Their kids die in a car accident. Robin Williams dies in a car accident. I mean, the dog they had to drive to put down, I presume. So, you know, they could have just let the dog die there. But yeah, they really got to invest in a bike. So the wife makes a joke about it, but kind of funny. Another one here. At one point, Robin Williams is racing to a tree that his wife just painted because there's this kind of tether that attaches where she paints this tree and he can kind of see it in, you know, his heaven, and he races to it. First time, maybe there was a Naruto run. He really throws those hands back as he's running. And really giving it his all. So
I hate this so much because I've never noticed that until now. But now that Naruto is a thing,
yeah,
I see it, and it's like, oh my god! Like this movie came out before, I'm sure even the manga for Naruto did. But yeah, he does that run, and now it's like, God
Yeah.
damn it. Oh, okay.
So,
I didn't even
I
pick up
can't
on
unsee
that.
it.
Yeah.
oh yeah.
I'm in the
It's
same.
quick.
I'm in the same
He's
boat.
like running.
Yeah.
He's like running through either tall grass or something,
Arms
but you
straight
can kind of see
back.
the arm straight back, and you're like, "Hold on!" And then they cut, and then they cut back, and you're like, "He is."
Oh,
I mean, the beauty of having it on Netflix too, you just rewind and do all that.
yeah.
But yeah, and then there's this scene towards the end. I mean, it's not really a light moment, but basically Robin Williams, as we kind of alluded to and talked about, he kind of sacrifices himself, to be with the person he loves, rather than not be with her. And there's a scene where him and Robin Williams and Max von Sydow are talking about how long he can spend in this kind of hellscape, and he's like 3 minutes, and I timed it, and he goes in there for over 12 minutes of actual film time. So just one of those funny things of like, I really get upset, like just call it 15 minutes, like just call it 15 minutes, and then we the audience can watch it. Really dislike it when movies are like, we got 2 minutes, and then there's like 20 minutes of action, and then it's like the 2 minutes is still counting down. Like,
Yeah.
okay, just a little
That's
comedy
fair.
note. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, Greg, as we've talked more about it, I don't think this is a bad movie. I appreciate the suggestion for it. I think I rated it on my Letterboxd 3 to 5 stars, mainly because, as I mentioned earlier, kind of the first half kind of has this Willy Wonka, Wizard of Oz kind of quality of like you're going into a different world. The story, the base of the story, beyond the kind of trying to catch, like I honest to God, the first 30 minutes you're like, it's kind of a whirlwind, and you're just trying to play catch up, especially when, like I said, I didn't read a trailer, I just kind of read a blurb for it. It was just kind of like, what's this movie about? But yeah, so yeah, 3 out of 5, definitely a solid choice. I see why you enjoy it. Yeah, those are my thoughts on what dreams may come.
Did you see the big reveal of the kids coming? Like when they revealed themselves, were you like, oh yeah, or you were like blindsided?
So after the first reveal, they reveal the daughter as a
Mhm.
different woman. You kind of get a sense of like, what is Cuba Gooding Jr.'s character? Who is Max von Sydow? Like it's kind of one of those, like they show it early, but at the same time, I was definitely a little bit surprised, that his son was Cuba Gooding Jr., which, there's kind of I don't want to say a little bit of comedy there, but it's like, they have a real heartfelt moment at one point, and it's just a little funny because like they like reveal it and then they're like having a heartfelt moment. But yeah, I wouldn't say I saw it coming exactly until I would say the first one, and then it's like, oh, okay, that makes some sense. But even Max von Sydow, it's like, oh, so he's I forget the doctor's name. It's like Dr. Arthur or something like that.
Albert.
Albert, yeah. I knew it was an A. But yeah, I wouldn't say that I saw it coming. But it definitely hit where it's like, oh, that's like, I get why, they're kind of taking them on this journey. And it's kind of funny to think about too. Like if you were, I'm not saying like, let's get deep into the afterlife here, but it's like, if that was the case, like it almost makes it easier to transition if like, a loved one is playing a different person in your life, or, playing someone who maybe you don't recognize clearly because you only knew them at a certain stage, to kind of help adjust you to kind of realizing that, you've passed on. So that was pretty cool as well.
Okay. Question for the group, for both of you guys.
Yeah.
Any waterworks?
Go ahead. I'm trying to think.
Yeah. So for me, I would say when they were talking about soulmates, and they were talking about, when kind of Robin Williams and his wife, when Annabella are talking, I kind of would say, I wouldn't say I got choked up or like even teary eyed, but it definitely was like you kind of mentioned earlier a little bit, Greg, like goosebumps, like just kind of being like, oh wow, like these are kind of things that I've either talked to my wife about or have thought about, in your darkest moments or your deepest, hardest days. But yeah, some of the other stuff, and like I said, I mean, I didn't have time to process the first 15-30 minutes where it's like all this stuff is happening. It's like I'm supposed, like, not that it didn't, like I didn't care and that it wasn't depressing or sad, but it's just like it hits you so quick. And they're like, I feel even though the movie is almost 2 hours, it like moves at a pretty quick pace, or at least I felt that way.
How about you, Hans?
I don't necessarily think there were like waterworks. I feel like maybe like you get like that like kind of like teary eyed part where, and I think the one that stands out probably the most would be when he realizes that Cuba is his son, and the whole like that when they flash back to when he's talking to his son like in the rain.
Yeah, that's a good moment.
And I think that's a really good scene for that, and also like the scene at the end when they're in hell and he's talking to his wife, and I think that's another one where like not necessarily like it's not. I don't want to say I teared up, but like you said earlier, that there are scenes where like you get like goosebumps where you're kind of just like it's a very it really like. And Harry, you had said this like it like I don't none of us know like on the show like what the afterlife is, and like if we're ever going to be faced with like these kind of challenges and everything. And I think this is more along the lines of like it is that it does like answer like it makes you ask those questions of like if this was it, like what would you do, like, and how would you have like these conversations, like how would you, like you're still dead but you still got to deal with some living stuff, and you know it's a very like I feel like the way they integrated it, but then they kind of make you at the same time like want it like I feel like they want you to feel sad, but then they like when you're in those sad moments they kind of show that like there's like kind of times for hope, like when they like towards the end when they do reincarnation, which is a pretty cool option. I don't even know if that, they just threw that in at the end.
They have to put in paperwork for that, or is that like something they can just jump on the line? Or
yeah, that's an excellent question. Like how long to take? Is it like a 6-week process? Like are there like priority? Like
yeah, there was a nice little joke in there because obviously, the ending they do, instead of choosing to live together, I guess in heaven, they want to experience life together because of the stuff they missed out on, and that was really sweet. And then they show him as kids, but there's a line that Robin Williams says. He's like, I found you in hell. You think I'm gonna have trouble finding you in New Jersey. So that was a really kind of funny there. So some humor in the movie. It's not all dark.
Well, I gotta say, as far as the waterworks go, I get consistent waterworks with this movie every time, and it's always the same part. But it's when they're in hell and he's trying to rescue her, and he's going through, and that moment where you see him start to fade, and the color is draining from him, and then all of a sudden his eyes are kind of glazed over, and he doesn't know where he's at. It's that moment of self-sacrifice. And that just gets me every time. And it's like, oh man, not only did he learn his lesson from earlier in the movie when, they had their double D day, and he goes into that whole explanation how he should have been there with her, but he wasn't because he had to be strong. But now he wants to spend eternity with her. He'd rather spend eternity with her in hell than be separated. So that just kind of tugs at the heartstrings every time. Yeah. But anyway, glad you enjoyed this movie. Any other final thoughts from you guys?
Yeah, I was gonna say really quick. I mean, if you have any hallucinogens, or if that's your pleasure, honestly, the first 45 minutes of this movie could really, really, really melt your mind, especially with the heavy topics they talk about. And I will say, there was some points in the movie where I was like, are we gonna revisit this, or as you mentioned, the double D day. Kind of things that get thrown out and you're like, what was that? What is that? And then they really circle back to it. And, so I would imagine, and not taking anything away from it because but usually books are always better than the movie. I wonder if I would have read this as a book had if I would have, how people who read the book appreciated the movie or didn't appreciate the movie. So that's always interesting to me with those adaptations for that.
Yeah, I will say, and maybe this plays into why I love this movie so much. I mean, one of many things, but I'm a sucker for a good afterlife story, be it Lost or The Good Place or this, sign me up. I love when they deal with that topic. So anyway, cool. Well, glad you enjoyed it for the most part. And then next we have...
I enjoyed it, Greg. I enjoyed it. I appreciate you dug deep and grabbed a movie from your heart to share with the world.
Good. I'm glad you did.
I did the same thing with my movie.
Yes. So let's move on to that one. We're talking Dredd, baby.
Dredd.
Wow.
Opposite
wait.
in many
I'm,
respects.
yeah. I'm kind of like, yeah, Robin Williams' character met a lot of people. And he was in heaven and hell.
Dread put him there.
Dread put him there.
IMDb search official body count, I think, for this is 102 people. So
Nice.
Wow, really?
That's apparently the line there. I mean, I don't. There's one scene that we'll get to, which I don't know how they got the accurate body count for that, but yeah.
Look, and if you're looking at From What Dreams May Come, that's what did you say? 102?
Yeah, 102.
That's 98 more than What Dreams May Come.
Well, I mean, you're discounting the dog. That's
true. I apologize. Yeah.
What do we say? Arthur.
Albert had to get Albert had to get
Albert,
it somehow.
Yeah, Albert had to get in there. Why do I keep saying Arthur? Or Arthur? I can't even say Arthur.
Albert.
I know. I'm just trying to say the word Arthur now. I almost want to say author. We're off the rails.
Oh, yeah.
We are.
So Dread. So a movie came out in 2012. Action, obviously, movie. If you have Hulu or Epix and you subscribe to that, you should be able to get this movie. Pete Travis directed it. If you don't know Pete Travis, he didn't really do too much else of importance after that I could find. Maybe you guys found something. Stars Carl Urban, who's been in a plethora of things, some Lord of the Rings movies. He's on the Amazon show The Boys now, which I think is probably where he's kind of playing center role for that. Olivia Thirlby, who's kind of like that girl in a movie. I looked at her IMDb. She has a bunch. I can't even. There's no movie where she's been the star, which I guess this movie is one of them where she was, second billing. Possibly behind Lena Headey, who is the villain in this movie, and Wood Harris.
The only things I recognized Olivia Thirlby from were Juno and the Wackies.
Yeah.
I don't know anything else that she was in.
Yeah, I think she there was a movie I think called Margaret, which I think she was into, which some people, some art house heads might know. Lena Headey, obviously from Game of Thrones. Wood Harris from The Wire fame, so they really dug deep on the HBO log lines there and got those too. So I mean, this is based off of the comic. It's based off well, I wouldn't say it's based off. It's a reboot. I would say. I'm not even caring about the previous 90s version from Sylvester Stallone that I think we briefly mentioned in our action movies.
Yeah, I mean, this is closer to the comic than that was by far.
Yeah, 100%. Those were the vibes I was picking up from it because it seemed I haven't seen Judge Dredd as I thought I did because it was definitely what was the other movie that he did? So
Demolition Man.
Demolition Man.
I think what happened was the only time we talked about Judge Dredd is because we thought we were talking about Demolition Man.
Well, I thought I was talking about Demolition Man. Then I had to pause and be like, I don't know what I'm talking about right here because I'm not making any sense. So a couple other cool things just to mention about this movie really quick is this 2012 big time for 3D. So this movie did get a 3D release, and upon first watch, there's some camera things that I was like, wow, that's a little interesting, or it's a little interesting they're lingering on this. And then you think about the 3D element of it. And so I think that definitely plays a role in rewatching it. But I know it was well received with 3D, and you can kind of see some of the scenes where that kind of stands out. And then a couple other notes that I just wanted to make just about kind of the production of the movie. Alex Garland did the screenplay for this. I read that he kind of had some influence from Training Day as kind of, this, veteran cop showing the ropes of a rookie. Definitely different tones as far as, the connection between Dredd and Anderson, I think, is Olivia's character.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Alex Garland, he's done things such as Ex Machina, and a couple Annihilation. Yeah, thank you. A couple other sci-fi movies, which so he's kind of a big name right now and a big director. So that was surprising because I don't think I knew that when I watched it because it was the first time I watched it. But it was a little surprising fact after the fact with that.
Yeah, I didn't even know that he actually directed or had any kind of connection with this. And I'm like a huge Alex Garland fan because I know he had like Ex Machina, great movie, phenomenal movie. Annihilation, I actually will not. I don't think I've watched that more than once. I own it, but I get really uncomfortable in some of the scenes where it's kind of like,
Oh,
yeah, like the whole like last 15 minutes. And Greg, have
Oh,
you
yeah.
seen Annihilation?
No, is that the one with
Natalie Portman.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very like it you know
Sci-fi.
it's a
It's
great
very
it's a
sci-fi.
fantastic movie, but there it's
Yeah,
very like
I
there's
wanted to
some
see it. I just never got
yeah
around to it.
yeah it's
Right.
really good. But yeah, I didn't even know he had any connection with this, which is good because I mean I love Dread. I love like the I don't know like any bad thing about this. Like it's just it's a fun
Wow.
movie. Like I'm not putting this up there as like my favorite movie of all time, or even top 10. But for what it is, it's such a goofy, crazy like you take the silliness from like the one from the 90s with Sylvester Stallone and you kind of put like a mature tone on that as well.
Mm.
And it's like it's goofy. It's a goofy movie with a darker tone than what came before it, and I think it fits.
It's like it's like a Disney
Go-
Goofy movie. Is that what you're?
yeah, it's
referring
just
to?
like a Goofy movie. In fact, they
With Livewire.
they should do a crossover with Goofy and Dread.
Oh Jesus!
I don't think that would
Um,
end well for Goofy.
No, then yeah, but I I just had a weird picture. But it's just such a vibe. Like I feel like this did not get. This is kind of becoming like I guess what you consider like a cult classic.
Yeah.
It didn't do well in the box office in
Nope.
terms of like it's a rated R kind of character that
Hard
it
R.
kind of it's way oh yeah it's well after the it didn't have the stink of Stallone on it, but I think
Mhm.
like you didn't have a lot of big name characters in it. Like I think your biggest name character in it was I honestly couldn't even tell you. Like Lena Headey was probably the biggest name. I mean, Carl Urban was a that guy, but he never
Yeah.
really highlighted a movie.
I'd be curious to see what other movies were out when this opened up because that might have had an impact on it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this was when summer movies were like killing it. It was like 2012. I think this came out in over the summer, if I remember correctly.
Well, that
so,
would be Avengers 1 was 2012.
yeah. I don't know. I'll do some research, fellas.
Okay.
but at the same time, but like yeah, I think it really fell into that like kind of category of like people just didn't care, and
Yeah.
I think people that watch the movie will like vouch for it as it's just a great action movie, and
Yeah.
the performances in it, like a lot of people discredit it, like Carl Urban, like he's been around forever, and he's like kind of starting to get that recognition he deserves with the boys. Like I think he's a phenomenal actor, but
Yeah.
I can't think of
Yeah.
any role that he's done that I haven't enjoyed. Like he's just one
Yeah.
of those
Even
where like
Dune,
whatever you
he's-
give him, he'll knock it out of the park.
Yeah, he's in Dune. Oh, dude, not
Yeah.
Dune, Doom, and like he's even great in that. But
Yeah.
I think that it's just like it's one of those movies that kind of just fell through the cracks, and not a lot of people saw it.
Well,
and they should have.
I mean, jumping on the release date for it, I mean, it came out in September, which is usually, as
September,
we all
okay.
know, is kind of more of a downtime.
Dumping ground, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it would have had, it looks like it was middle of September, I think. So late September. So it would have ran into something at the beginning of August that probably would have, superseded it or, taken precedent. But I mean, the 3D was also a factor, though. I think that was, during a time where, it had kind of, people have kind of figured out like 3D is kind of more of a gimmick, not to avoid it. Cause I mean, as we mentioned with, Avengers and all that stuff, it was something that was pulling in the box office, but I think it was definitely something that played a role for that. And plus, I mean, Dread following, the 1990s version with Stallone, it's like, how well is this going to do? And it looks like they, played true to comic heads of the Dread comic. Definitely some influences, as we'll get. I mean, it kind of, I guess I'll tell a little bit about the movie. So basically Judge Dredd, he's got this rookie cop Anderson that he's got to teach. They have the first scene that shows Dredd being a total baddie and, blowing up some cars with some guys taking a slow-mo drug, which again, really cool. Kind of felt like I was watching Cranked. I was interested in what the Cranked influence on this movie was, but that, or if there was anybody who was like involved with Cranked. But yeah, like when they were taking the slow-mo drug, they basically really, really slow things down. And that was pretty cool. But yeah, so he takes this rookie cop. They end up going to Peach Trees, which is like this big apartment complex in Mega City. Or is it called Mega City? Mega City 1.
Mega City 1. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they basically get locked down in there, and it's these two versus a whole flood of gang for Mama's gang, which are some really cool names in the movie as well. But yeah, what I also thought was pretty cool is they didn't really try to rely on too many like special effects. Like they just kind of put some things in there, kind of used realistic kind of freeways or areas of the world, and just kind of put some CGI buildings and some things flying over. So they didn't try to overdo it and cheapen it. They just kind of added it in there, playing a little bit of a role there for it. So I thought that was pretty cool. Definitely could see some Batman influences with Dredd's one-liners. I'm sure maybe from the comics that are in there. I wrote a couple of them down that I really just enjoyed. It's all the deep end. Maybe I should do this in like a Dredd voice. It's all the deep end. I think a bullet might interfere more with that when he's talking to Anderson about not wearing a helmet. I am the law. Judgment time. So just some really cool one-liners in there that I just like was getting heavy, Batman vibes. Maybe it's because of the arguments we've had about Batman that it was on my brain, but yeah, just really, really funny, enjoyable one-liners from a guy who takes his job very, very seriously. And holds it to the law, the letter of the law. What does the law say? As he goes through there. But yeah, I mean, it starts off pretty bloody as well, going into the movie. I mean, as I mentioned, it's a hard R, so definitely know that going in. Yeah, a weird, we mentioned some of the actors in the movie, a weird little Domhnall Gleeson cameo. The future Supreme, the try to be Supreme Leader Hex. Little cameo from him in here is some robot tech guy, which was pretty interesting. But yeah, what do you guys think about all that? I mean, what are your relations to Dredd?
Well, I've got a couple points I wanted to touch on. One, yeah. I think as far as the Batman thing goes, it's funny that you mentioned that because I was trying to picture him. I think he would be a killer Batman. I don't know about a good Bruce Wayne, but Batman, like he would be perfect as that character. Judge Anderson, well, I guess I don't know if she's a judge in the beginning of the movie. Spoiler alert, she becomes one at the end, but just throw that out there.
She completes her training.
Yeah, but I think she's a really good entry point for us, the viewers, because Judge Dredd is just such an unassailable, like kick butt dude. Like he's very stoic. There's not much to him, but give us Anderson, who is the one with these human emotions and trying to learn the ropes and decide what's good and what is just. And that makes a perfect entry point for us. So I think it was a really good addition having her in the story as opposed to just following Dredd around and watching him wreak havoc,
Yeah, that's a fair shout. It reminds me of Sicario with Emily Blunt's character. They kind of use her as the audience avatar to kind of see through it. And I mean, Anderson has her moments on her own where she, gets to show us like her powers, as a mutant, which I thought was pretty funny considering all the, X-Men Marvel talk you hear all the time. But continue, Greg. I cut you off. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, no, it's all good. And then the visual effects for slow-mo, I thought were stunning. I do remember the other time that I watched this, I watched it in 3D. I have the 3D Blu-ray, and at the time I had 3D TV and everything, so I popped it on and watched it in that. And yeah, I loved it. I thought it was great in that format. But if that could be another thing that led to its box office demise, was if it was at the time an era where they were pumping 3D and just pushing it, and there's like 70% of shows in 3D and 30% not. well, if nobody wants to see
Yeah,
3D.
I think it was released as Dread 3D. Like I think that was
Yeah.
kind of the selling point for it.
I'm starting
if
to
I
see like
remember
the
correctly.
poster. Yeah. And it like that was like when it was like the 3D, like the real D, which I was never like a big fan of. I was always like the
There's some
IMAX or
movies.
like,
Yeah,
I guess, but it's just like I was more like IMAX kind of 3D. Like I feel like that got the
of
most
course.
out of like the 3D kind of trend. But I specifically, for some reason I feel like on the poster it said I see Dread, and then like they threw like a 3 in there somewhere like for an E. Because
Well, I'm gonna need
clever.
next year a 10th anniversary re-release in IMAX and Dolby, please.
With like a tease for a sequel at the end.
Yes. So yeah, those are just some of the points I had for now, but by all means continue, or unless Hans, you got anything?
No, I mean, there's a and we've mentioned this before. I believe we mentioned this before. Is like with Dread and a movie we've talked about like multiple times with the Raid. They do have like kind of similar stories in terms of a building locking down, and our hero has to fight their way out. And I think the Raid came out
It's
in
a trap.
2011, so it was like kind of like close. But it like it's so like going back to Carl Urban, like it's so like true because I didn't read Dread comics, but I'm pretty sure like any of the judges like never really took off their helmets, and that's like dedication for Carl Urban to keep that on the whole movie. Like Stallone, I don't remember the last time I saw Judge Dredd. He probably like knocked that thing off in the first 5 minutes off that big melon of his, and he probably was just like, "No, I'm not wearing this the whole movie." Meanwhile,
You know what? I'm glad
Good.
that you mentioned that, because props to the director and the studio for leaving the helmet on, because that's a big problem that I have with superhero movies. They're like, oh, well, we pay all this money for the actor, we want to show their faces. And it's like, yeah, but 90% of the time they're supposed to be wearing the mask.
Yeah,
So
just
I'm
cast
so
anybody.
happy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, not just cast anybody, but I'm so happy that they kept it on with Dread. I mean, look, having Carl Urban in there made the difference, and guess what? We never saw the top half of his face. So
I will ask this nerd question. Do you have a preference on the helmet? Because I have one, but I'd like to hear from you too. If you prefer the helmet in 2012 Judge Dredd or the Stallone Dredd helmet.
2012.
yeah, I mean this.
I don't even remember what the Stallone one looked like, but I kind of washed that stink out of my memory. Like I can't remember. The last time I probably watched it was probably at a time when I probably shouldn't have, like in like the late 90s when I was like 11 or 12. Which was 25 years ago.
Well, while you guys are pulling up images, I'll talk a little bit about a scene that I hinted at earlier. When we talk about body counts, and it's the minigun scene. So at one point, Mama gets Dredd and Anderson trapped on a floor. They figure out how to lock them down in there, and then they just pull out these 3 miniguns on tripods, and they're just railing pretty much from like it's an apartment complex, so it's one side each. So they're just railing on the one side, and Dredd is running like 100 miles an hour trying to get out of the way of these bullets. As these 3 guns are just destroyed. Like it goes on for a solid like 2 minutes, all this shooting. And don't know how they kept the body count clean on that. I guess they maybe just showed people and just counted them as opposed to the people they didn't show. But shockingly, Dredd does not get hit once, which I thought was a little bit, but like, at the same time, it's like, I don't know. I always have trouble with this. It's like, well, then don't go so overkill with the guns and make it survivable. But it's like, maybe a nick in the leg or the shoulder or, some blood. But I mean, he's Dredd and he's a baddie. So he's going to try to make it out of there.
Nah, man. No, he's not taking any bullets. That's how good he is.
So what's the vote on
but
the
he
helmet?
does.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he does at one point. Yeah.
For the helmet, for me, I prefer this one, but also
Interesting.
I like if you look at, I guess the art design for the whole movie, which includes the helmets, everything is like dirty and grimy and lived in, and I love that. Like this look, to your point about the CG and I guess even the sci-fi elements of it, even though this takes place in I guess the distant future, because they talk about what Mega City 1 is, And that
which is
would,
interesting.
yeah, but like all the tech in it is somewhat realistic. Like it's not leaps and bounds beyond what we have
Yeah,
now.
the
So I
motorcycles,
like
the guns. Yeah,
exactly. So I like that they kept it that way, and I like that you know, even reflected in costume design, everything is very worn and lived in and grimy and dirty.
That's a good point. Like, and I just like pulled up some of the because I want the comparative image from like the Stallone one to the, the urban one, and it like you're right. Like it looks like it's like worn down,
Mhm.
and I feel like they're both futuristic movies, but like Stallone's looks like so campy. I'm not
yeah,
gonna lie, I kind of like the helmet a little bit, but a lot more than I remember it. But yeah, like
yeah,
it doesn't look like. I feel like a lot like back then in like the 90s, like they made like these futuristic cities to be like beautiful and like well lit and
yeah.
just like crazy. Like
Perfect.
there's yeah. This one, I love the environment in this one. This just looked like a
Yeah,
like a rundown dump.
yeah.
And the characters like you said, the outfits are reflecting that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I kind of prefer the Stallone one just because I felt like it was a little bit bigger and a little like cooler looking. But like I take your point, Greg, about the lived in helmet. It looks like his everyday attire. So,
Mhm.
um, so yeah. So after that minigun scene, there's another funny little scene where Judge Dredd has to let everyone know that he is still alive, because they make a call and sadly it doesn't go well for him. So he runs in, and I'm pretty sure this is like Mama's number two, Caleb. He just gets chucked off the balcony and he's just gone. No, like he goes over to look for him, and it's just like he's out of the movie. Like his number two is just deuces. We'll see you later. He really like it's just he's gone. It's it. It's it for him.
When that happened, I was like, "Wait, was that the dude?"
Yeah,
Like they just offed him like that, and it's like, okay, the
yeah,
lieutenant's gone.
yeah. So,
Um,
another cool tie-in really quick with the movie that I read about, which I kind of didn't realize at first, but there's a scene where Wood Harris's character goes up and he's basically kidnapped for the majority of the movie. Very, very small like line reading from him. Like it just seems like they forget about him for the first half an hour because he's like just tied up. He doesn't really say a single word, I think, until he gets alone with Olivia's character Anderson. And so there's a really cool scene where I mean, it's not really cool, it's really intense. Where like she goes into his head because, as I mentioned, she's a mutant and she's like a psychic and kind of like jump into his head, and allows him to use her gun, like take her gun from him. And then later on in the movie, when Wood Harris, surprise, he escapes, has her kidnapped. He tries to use the gun and it backfires on him and blows his arm off. So there was the connection there where it was like he thought he could use the gun based off of that. And she kind of supplanted it in his mind that he would be able to use that. So just thought that was pretty cool.
She incepted it, baby.
Inception. Christopher Nolan touches everything, as we know.
Gave him that idea.
Really dug when the bad judges show up. I think one of them's name is Lex, and like they kind of go quick with the names, and if you don't pause it, you'll probably miss them. But love kind of the corruptness of it and showing how deep the corruption goes. That's what also I really enjoyed about this movie is like it doesn't try to be more than it needs to be. It doesn't show us who, there's two scenes with like Dredd's boss, and it's pretty much like, hey, you're going to train this rookie, and at the end it's, hey, how did this rookie do? Are you allowing him to go through? There's no other scenes which this person is
Never
in,
mind that they just went through the most extreme circumstances.
I felt like, I don't know, I felt like it's a little laid back for that, but I guess when it's Dredd, you're just kind of like, oh, he's got it. Like, oh,
yeah, true.
killed 100 people in a hotel drug bust. Okay, cool, awesome, great job, Dredd.
That's our Dredd.
Somebody clean this up. Yeah. Don't worry about the paperwork. We'll do it
The
Monday.
meat wagon.
But what I really loved was that it didn't try to be too much. It didn't have like a commanding officer who like shows up towards the end, and you're like, why would this be the case? It didn't try to add, weird things or weird, there wasn't a love interest between Dredd and Anderson. It just kind of like, I really enjoy when movies kind of stick to their guns and just kind of push through for it, or commit to a hard R, if you're going to have this, one scene, like just commit and go with it. So really enjoyed that. And then, the wild mama death scene at the end, again, I think it makes more sense when you're watching it in 3D in a movie theater as opposed to here, but it's definitely a really cool, interesting scene. Dredd kind of playing the odds, saying, you know, is this really going to work? She tries to set off a bomb that's going to blow up all 50 floors, and he has none of it and throws her off the side. She falls 200 floors from the top of the building, which was pretty insane, if you ask me. So yeah. Any other thoughts on Dredd, boys? Before I give it my rating.
Hans, you want to go first?
Lena Headey is like I only know her, like I forgot, like she was like up and coming kind, because she was in 300 and she was filming Game of Thrones at the same time as this. So I don't, and I think the only other like thing I know her from is at the time was like the Sarah Connor Chronicles on Fox, which I think lasted like 20 minutes, which deservedly so. Yeah, I watched every 20 minutes. But I think like she's such a good villain, like for this kind of role, like, and you know, she had kind of shows in Game of Thrones too. You know,
does she do you know about that? Or
we've discussed this. So just the middle part I need to get caught up on. Just his middle 2 seasons.
Middle 2.
Yeah. She's a terrible person. But I loved her like addition. I think like she was kind of like a lot of the people they used for the cast were like up and coming actors, and you know, I thought everyone like kind of carried their part really well in this. You know, going back to like kind of the sequel talk, like I think this movie, if it did a little more did it well financially, I think we could have saw a second one. But in the days of streaming nowadays, like I want to see like Netflix throw like a bunch of money to make this like a series. Like I think this would do well as that kind of streaming series on either like Amazon or Netflix, or Disney Plus, and that would be great if they like sneak that in there. And but I'm not sure. Like I think there could be a future, but with the way like Carl Urban's like kind of making out with The Boys right now, like he's like Emmy nominated, like that show, he's gonna be on that until either like they kill him off or he just doesn't want to do it anymore. But he's like really getting his name out with that. But yeah, extremely violent movie. Like, you know, definitely not What Dreams May Come. Was a highlight in terms of movies that wasn't the superhero movie, like from 2012. You know, it still holds up really well for being like 9 years old. Like it's not 30 years old, but I think,
yeah,
I feel like this movie could be made today, like on like a streaming service, and kind of be good. Most of these streaming movies are not good. Watch Money Plane. You'll see if I'm right or wrong.
Oh, geez. Kelsey
I'll
Grammer.
pass, thanks.
Yeah, that's gonna. Next time we do this,
hold on. You watch that?
I made it about 15 minutes.
And I think the Edge, isn't Edge in that, the wrestler?
Yep,
I think so. Yeah.
Surprised Greg
Yes, he
hasn't
is.
watched that, given his.
I don't watch
that-
any movies with wrestlers.
Come on, you're
That's-
watching Suicide Squad with John Cena. Get out of here.
No, that's true. I am. Yeah,
And you
Yeah,
watched all the
that's-
Rock movies. Get out of here.
I do. All
We're
right,
seeing
two
Jungle
exceptions.
Cruise this weekend. Get out of here.
That's gonna be my next thing. Is you guys have to watch Money Plane. All three of us need to watch Money
Ooh.
Plane in whole. But yeah, no, I
Or
like
at least
you know,
watch downloaded episode. Money
Yeah.
Plane.
But yeah, I again, the reason I recommended it, I thought you'd enjoy it. Which, you know, we'll find out in a second. Papa, your last takes on it.
Yeah. You know, going back, I totally forgot about the corrupt judges, so I was pleasantly surprised
Yeah.
when I saw that. I was like, yeah, it's a great plot point. And just overall, great casting. Everybody did really, really well in their roles. Lena Headey, I believe it's pronounced,
What I've been
was
saying, Hetty.
yeah, she was
my bad.
tremendous
Sorry,
as
Lena.
it's all right. I mean, you know, she does listen, but it's okay.
I'll message her, let her know.
She was tremendous as Mama, Carl Urban, Olivia Thirlby. I mean, you went over the cast; they were all great. So, yeah, I really liked it. Hans, I didn't even think about what would happen if they did like a Netflix mini series, like give me a 10-part hour-long episodes or whatever. I'm totally down as long as it's Carl Urban as Dredd. But yeah, I think that would be tremendous.
On that note, I read some like IMDb kind of facts on this. What would you like? And one person who was tried out for the role was Michael Biehn, which looking back, I probably would. I think I think he might have been a little too old in 2012 to do that,
Mm.
and he kind of disappeared. I
don't
forgot he
know.
even existed, but
I mean, he's got the acting chops. I don't know if he has like the physical stature.
That's
for
what
it,
I mean,
'cause he's
yeah.
a little
Yeah.
smaller, right?
Yeah.
yeah, I mean he could
think so.
beef up for it maybe. I'm every role I think I've
Hit the
seen him
gym.
in. He's been a little scrawny in, but yeah, I think he would have been great for it. Like I'm waiting for like this Michael Bean like
Renaissance.
return,
The
like
comeback.
Renaissance, like this comeback. Like I feel like he gets so much so he needs to get recognized more. I watch Tombstone because it's literally on TV all the time. And other than like other than Val Kilmer, like he's probably my favorite part of the movie. This isn't the
Mhm.
Michael Bean podcast, but this is the love that he should be
Hashtag
getting.
love Michael Bean.
That's coming
Love
soon.
Michael Bean. But he actually tried out for the role and it made me think like I think like he would have been another good actor like kind of for this role. But you're right. In terms of physicality, I probably can beef up more than him.
That is interesting, though. That would be an interesting what if.
Yeah.
But yeah. I don't know.
God.
Give me that Netflix series. Back to you.
Yeah,
Howard.
I mean, that would definitely. I mean, it seems like, I mean, if Alex Garland really did a lot of the screenplay for it, which things that I read seemed like he was kind of, basing it, from the comic, but writing the screenplay for it. Like, it seems like the ball's in his court if he wants to write something else, because I think he had a couple storylines that he wanted to do, but he just couldn't figure it out. So I think if he did that, they probably might greenlight something, especially because of, his prominence now with, his ability to do some movies. I mean, he has won, I don't know if he specifically won an Oscar, but, Ex Machina did win an Oscar for, I think, visual effects or, whatever the category was for that. But
he has a show on Hulu called Devs, which
Devs,
is
It's
phenomenal.
on FX, but yeah.
Or FX, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, yeah, but it's
Yeah.
on they have it on Hulu. It's a phenomenal show. And
That sounds like
he
right up your
created
alley.
that. Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, I'd be definitely interested in a Netflix series. That's like some like Netflix series that didn't work for me, where like some of the subpar, like I thought they were subpar Marvel stuff like Daredevil and Punisher and stuff like that. Like they never really caught my interest, but I think something in that vein, but like Dread, I think, with the popularity of like cop shows, and just using it as like, cop show, maybe putting a little bit more money behind it might be something that people be interested in. But overall for me, I enjoyed Dread just a tad more. I think I also gave it 3 stars, mainly because its commitment to violence / being its own movie and not caring, honestly, like I feel like they made it and didn't care if this movie would make $100 million or if it made $5 million. So really enjoyed that. But yeah, probably had a little bit more fun with this, but definitely enjoyed the heart of What Dreams May Come. Also, I don't know if I mentioned it. Dread, nice hour 35. You're in, you're out.
Yeah.
Big bang, you're done. So
Love me a good 90-minute movie.
Woo, baby, I'll tell you, nowadays, working, I mean, you guys got kids, a 90-minute movie. I mean, as much as I actually, little side note for the listeners, I went out and bought 10 Criterion movies for my collection.
Ooh,
and
nice.
I don't think any of them are 90 minutes except for maybe one. So when to find the time, because the wife ain't going to watch them with me. So that's another problem as we all struggle.
Harry, can you like in terms of Criterion, when do movies get added? Because there's one movie that I heard is on Criterion. I don't know if it should be on there, but I'm thinking about buying it.
It's the Muppet movie.
It's not. You're
Which
close.
one? Which movie?
Armageddon.
Stop.
So
it.
Armageddon is on there. Michael Bay's
What?
Armageddon is in the Criterion
What?
collection.
What
but,
is the criteria to be on Criterion?
That's why I'm just curious.
I think there's another Michael Bay movie on there, if I'm being honest about it. I just can't remember which one.
It's got to be Pain and Gain.
Dark
No,
of the Moon. Dark of the Moon.
What? Stop. But anyway, but yeah, that's I don't know if it's available because sometimes they run things like they have a Akira Kurosawa like box set of like 12 of his movies, but like it's not in print right now, so you can't buy it anywhere. Straight from Criterion. I'm sure you can maybe find it.
I cannot believe that's a Criterion. I am shooketh.
Yeah. So hopefully the listeners at home still. I mean, but I was gonna say, Uncut Gems comes out on Criterion in October.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
So, but yeah. If anybody catches this before August 2nd, 50% off Barnes and Noble. Free plug for the Barnes people. and Criterion apparently. Yeah, to check that out, 50% off all their stuff, and usually their stuff is pretty expensive, and they have a lot of extra features. So Criterion, Barnes, we're here. We'll gladly pitch you all the time. So
Nice. It's getting that Armageddon Criterion.
Main topic is over, but I'm going to hit you guys with a side topic, and we didn't actually discuss this beforehand.
Final
so this is news.
A little
Yeah.
hot flavor. A little.
We've already derailed like 3 different times.
So I know we talked about possibly doing an episode on this, but we kind of nixed it because there were other topics. But I went ahead and watched Space Jam 2 yesterday. Did you guys happen to catch it or no? No.
So here's one thing I will say, and I don't mean to just to derail you, Greg.
Yeah.
I didn't see it, but I also feel like I had my Space Jam movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I was 8 years old, I think, or 9 years old when that one came out. And like, that was my Space Jam. So nothing against this one. I don't have a kid that's old enough to see it. Maybe one day I'll be able to show my kid. But yeah, let's hear the review. The folks are chomping at the bit.
All right. So I'm going to keep this one spoiler free just in case you guys do want to go watch it, because I know it's relatively new, but I hated it. it was so bad. And like, I didn't have high expectations going in either, but I'm like, you know what? Like, I heard there's other Warner properties in there. Maybe that'll be cool and all this stuff. No, it was dreadful. And LeBron James, as amazing as he is on the court, he is the complete opposite of that on the stage, because acting ain't his field, baby. That ain't his bag.
Did you see him in Trainwreck?
That's what I was gonna say. Like Trainwreck, he's good in.
But
I like the supporting role.
Yeah,
but he's LeBron. But he literally
role,
and he's LeBron.
Well, I liked Trainwreck, and he had very, very, very limited screen time in that. This one, he had to carry a whole movie.
Apples to oranges here. Yeah,
that's fair.
Yeah. So I don't know. I would not recommend it to anyone. If I had to rate it out of 5, I'd probably give it like a 1.5. I don't know. It was brutal.
Let's get Papa Spice on Letterboxd. That's the next thing. We got to get him on Letterboxd.
I am on there. I just never use it. I've had a Letterboxd for like 3 years.
Oh my god, we got to follow you.
I heard like a lot, and I hot take. I'm not even a fan of the first Space Jam. Like I think it's shut up. I think it's like I probably, when I was like, when did it come out? 95, 96?
Sounds about right.
Yeah, 10 or 11. 10 or 11. I probably loved it, but I watched it 3-4 years ago. I think it was on TV or something, and it just does not. I like cringe through it. I thought it was like so like I did not like it. And I'm like, I think this movie's a lot like. I only watched it once when I was 10 or 11, and then when I was like 30. And I'm like, it stinks. I did not like it. And that's the same, like Jordan's not a good actor. He's hardly a good basketball player. And I just want to see the faces you made.
Talking about hot takes. Jeez,
I know.
No, but like, I mean, he wasn't I heard this like movie's like one long commercial for like different products, and every like Batman somewhere in it, and like Warner Brothers is just like basically like pausing to see who you could find. And I don't.
Yeah, there's definitely some of that, and I was shocked that they had like the Nike logo in there. I think several times. Like it was wild to me.
I heard it was just basically like 2 hours of product placement, or however long it was. I have no desire. Like when they announced this, I'm like, you know what, LeBron, I like LeBron. Like, let's see how they go with it. And I saw the first trailer. I'm like, this looks awful. So thank you for biting the bullet and saying like,
I was gonna say, Greg, the rare amount of times you get out to the theater, or did you see it at home? Did you watch it at home?
HBO Max. Yeah.
Okay.
That's
good.
yeah.
I would never pay for that. Yeah.
No.
Sheesh.
And
if that wasn't on HBO Max, that would be never seen.
Never.
Now I'm angry.
Well,
all right. Well, that is it.
A little added spice for the folks at home.
Yes.
A little Space Jam review.
Thank you all for viewing and watching. As always, by all means, share, comment, like, subscribe. If you're listening on iTunes, please leave us a review. Hands, anything for the people?
No, I'm recommending. I know Harry's been a big fan of this, and Pop, if you haven't watched it, show on Apple called Ted Lasso.
Everybody in the world is talking about it.
And everyone in the world should be watching it. I watched the whole first series twice. So in like 2 weeks, because hey, what else? What else is there to do? But other than that, I really recommend you watch it. I'm gonna plug this show.
I thought you were on the Mythic Quest kick.
It's over.
He's on the Apple Quest.
Okay.
Dude, I'm rolling through Apple. Like
whose Apple login do you have?
I got that free login when I got the MacBook.
I got a couple months.
12 months
I do
or
admit,
12 months for free.
I want to see physical because I love Rose Byrne and that like 80s vibe looks good. So give me some
80s. I mean, Apple TV is killing it right now. So plugging it for them, just in case they're listening.
Harry, anything for the peeps?
Thanks for listening. If you guys have any movie suggestions, I mean, for the future, I mean, while we will pick them for the next person to go. If you guys, if there's a movie that you think is underappreciated, undercovered, that you think is a hit that maybe one of us has seen, we'll definitely throw it in maybe as a rotation pick, possibly. Like, share, subscribe. And we'll see you guys in a couple weeks with some more fun.
Awesome. All right, everybody. Thank you again for watching or listening. And as always, live spicy.
Spicy.